All right. Hi, Nathan from Kansas. How are you today?
Hi, guys.
Hi. What can we help you with?
Well, I have a question for you first. I know that you guys both watch Star Trek, correct?
That is correct.
I did not until V, and now I'm caught up, believe it or not.
Yep.
All of the series, all of the everything?
So I have not finished DS9.
And we have not, I will admit, I have not watched Enterprise yet. I keep trying, and that theme song just makes me run away every time. I will power through eventually. But other than that, I think we're almost completely caught up with everything.
Yeah.
New Trek, old Trek.
I encountered something recently that really set my brain on fire, basically, and I'm going to make the same accusation to you guys.
Okay.
Ooh.
You're not real Star Trek fans.
Are we?
Haven't heard that one before.
But are we Scotsmen?
Exactly.
What's going on? Why aren't we?
I was having a conversation with a friend over the new show that you guys probably haven't seen yet, Lower Decks.
Saw the first
Heck
season.
yeah. Lower Decks is awesome.
Yeah. Don't spoil anything from season 2 yet, but yeah.
I promise I won't spoil anything. That's the worst kind of person. But I was explaining from season 1 the idea that maybe all of Star Trek is this funny, but that the logs and the shows that we've seen in the past is everybody putting their own spin on it. And that Picard is just this silly, and Kirk is just this silly, but they get to write their own logs where they look like professionals.
That's funny.
And my friend was like, "You're not a real Star Trek fan." And so my head exploded. My real question for you guys is, do you see this in other stories? And at what point do stories become so important that we start to, you're not a real fan? You know, I've seen it with Star Wars and other stuff like that too. And I just wanted to kind of explore that general idea of stories becoming more important than they really are.
Yeah, that is Eric's, if you're not watching the video feed, Eric is like, his brain has exploded, essentially.
That's how I've been for a couple of days. I get it, buddy.
I'm plugging everything back in.
It's
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, that is a fascinating topic. The idea that stories can become, well, you kind of have that trajectory, right? Like a story is new and fresh and exciting and, can do anything. And then as soon as it kind of becomes canonized, as soon as it becomes like the way you tell the story, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more rigid and you don't have that flexibility anymore. And so that at that point, I feel like the risk of it becoming toxic in terms of dictating how you should interact with the story rather than organically growing from those interactions is tricky. I think a good example of that is Star Wars, like you were saying. There is this concept of what is really Star Wars and what isn't, and it really feels like, and this happened with Star Trek too. Next Gen was said to be not really Star Trek, until it was old enough to be considered canon. And then all of a sudden, oh no, that's real Star Trek. You know what isn't real Star Trek? DS9. And then as soon as DS9 became popularized and embedded into that kind of restricted canon, they're like, oh no, that's fine. But like new Trek, like Discovery, not real Star Trek. And we know now, right? Like if we give a bird's eye view of it, we just have to wait about 20 years. And then whatever we're doing now with Star Trek will not be real Star Trek, but Discovery, that's OG shit, right? So I think that we see basically what gives fundamentalism its bite happen everywhere. As soon as a bunch of people get invested in a story, it has the potential to become kind of a dogma, kind of this doctrine of it's either this way, which is right, or any other way, which is wrong. And the toxicity for me comes in when the story no longer facilitates connection, but rather division. Right? So if we are looking at a story and we know that everybody who engages with it splits off into these factions and just goes to war with each other over it, we might want to revisit, how to engage with that story. Maybe the story itself isn't toxic, but certainly the way it's being used is. And I think that ties directly back into a lot of religion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that anytime people want to create for themselves this identity around a thing that they love, or a thing that is meaningful to them, oh, well, we do this and we do that. And you start finding all the similarities. And then as soon as somebody doesn't fit the mold, well, that's not one of us.
Yeah.
And these in-group, out-group dynamics is an entirely human thing. It just, yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
A lot of the same. Most of my conundrum this week has been, am I a Star Trek Mormon, essentially? Like, I keep adapting each new chapter. I took the Old Testament, New Testament. Now there's this whole New Testament of Lord X that has taught me that the true meaning behind everything, and causing much division between me and my friends.
Oh gosh. Well, I think that is something that we could look at as okay, well, we know what happens when a story becomes canonized to the point of becoming the source of the fracturing of the community. How long lasting could a story be if we understood and adapted every time something new came into play, right? I think in one way that might be, it would probably go counter to any actual human nature, but it might be interesting to see how long we could keep a story going if everybody was a little bit more chill about it. Although then the Ship of Theseus thing becomes a thing. When does it stop being the story it started out as, and do we care about that?
Well,
I could get so high. I could get so high and talk about this all night. This is awesome.
I would love to just kind of wrap this back really quick for people, just because of that original, not a true blank. Mm-hmm. Just for people who are watching, who are new to this, who have not heard the no true Scotsman, is it an informal fallacy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is an informal fallacy that essentially seeks to invalidate someone's argument by invalidating the person, saying they're not one of us. They're not actually in the group, right? So, all Christians are good people. Well, that Christian is a bad person. Well, then they're not a true Christian. It goes back to, it's called No True Scotsman because I know that you describe it better. How was that formulated?
I'm sorry?
How's that?
The actual Scotsman? Oh, yeah. So someone says, no true Scotsman puts sugar in his porridge. And then person number 2 says, my uncle is Scottish and he puts sugar in his porridge, right? Seemingly justifying, that does in fact happen. And the first person goes, well, then he's not a true Scotsman. No true Scotsman puts sugar in his porridge.
It's weird gatekeeping, and instead of helping a conversation, all it does is it's just invalidating for no good reason. Well,
we talked about this with Sky right before, which is, let's just have a little nuance. The only reason a true Scotsman fallacy is necessary in the first place is because you've made that distinction that all something are something. And that's hardly ever the case, right? We can't make that kind of a broad claim. And so the second you introduce nuance, you no longer need to rely on the no true Scotsman fallacy in order to get your point across.
Yeah. And we appreciate that you're bringing it up for Star Trek, because honestly, dude, just because you're a skeptic in 10 areas of your life doesn't mean you're not toxically not skeptical in somewhere in another place. So it's just keeping an eye on it.
Also, I'm just happy to talk about Star Trek at any point in any context. So this was great, Nathan. This was a really interesting idea, and I think that Eric is going to be chewing on that captain's log thing for a little bit, for sure.
Well, enjoy the rest of DS9 and getting caught up with everything else, guys. Have an awesome show. I love you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Have a good rest of your day.
Hey, Nathan.
Nope. Dropped off. What were you going to say?
I would hate for Picard to be my captain. Fight me.
Oh, yeah, we've had that conversation before.
That's right. Picard is, But honestly, that idea kind of is reworking the way I'm thinking about Picard, that he might not be a terrible person. Maybe.
He might not be a terrible person?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so somebody asked me, which Star Trek captain would you least want mad at you? And there were people saying Lorca from Discovery or
Janeway.
No, Janeway is very easy to push over. Janeway, if you are a member of the crew, she will be mad at you for like 15 minutes and then be fine.
Yeah, if you're a member of the crew, fair.
Right, if you are of the crew and the captain was mad at you. I said Picard because Picard only really gets mad at people if they've actually fucked up. So if Picard was mad at me for real, that meant that I did something bad.
Ooh, didn't DS9 genocide an entire planet?
DS9 did genocide an entire planet.
Okay, so let's go with that.
Well, not the planet, not the people on the planet, but all of the natural resources. They made it uninhabitable. Okay, so
how is that not the winner? Okay, anyway.